We're at the Heroes Ride. So we're gonna pick up our packet. That's cool. Good morning, ladies. How you guys doing?
Good.
Smile.
Good.
Smile. So we're going. Hey, man. Hey, these guys. I think the route the same. How you guys
That's the
doing?
Team RR guys here.
Top of the morning, sir. Nice to see you.
That's Paul H over there. He's got our kit. That's Mark and Rob and Randy.
We got to find a place to meet everybody because we got a fairly good turnout.
Really?
They go this way, so we've right
That's it
around
right
here
there.
is a good
I'm gonna
place.
pick up. Let's get our packet.
Yeah, so we decide we're gonna meet out front. So we're gonna go grab our packets.
Yeah, man. I like that outfit.
Complimenting Paul H on his outfit and the team kit. He said he liked the design.
Let's see how the letters. How do you know where you are?
So we're trying to find which table is for the pre-registered riders because we're already registered online. It's really good to register online whenever possible. You know, it's not the end of the world. These guys are registering here. That's what I don't like to do. You got to fill out paperwork, waivers, all of that. If you do it online, you already have that done. And if you use Bike Reg or some other company, they store your waivers. So the next time you register for a ride, you don't have to do it again.
Different color shirt this year. Hi.
So we found the line for pre-registered riders.
NIMS, N-I-M-S, young man. That little young man is getting mine. N like Nancy, I-M-S.
He is. He's on it.
So the T-shirts this year is gray.
Yes, sir. Yeah, the boy pronounces perfect phonetics and everything.
Shirt size.
XL.
They changed the color of the T-shirt. So when you, another thing, you register online, you at least guaranteed a T-shirt. I get XL because my wife likes those T-shirts. She ends up taking them. She likes sleeping in large T-shirts, so I get the bigger sizes.
How you doing? How you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing, Elder?
You can be here all day or just till we take off?
Till you take off.
Till you take off. Okay.
Yeah, Rob rides with us on
Paul rides with
Sundays.
us on Saturday. Rob rides on Sundays.
So Paul's just getting to meet Rob.
Critical stuff people usually mess up.
Yeah. All the oops, I forgot my whatever stuff.
Yeah. Believe it or not, at last year's ride, somebody forgot their shoes. So they made an announcement, does anybody have spare shoes? I'm like, okay. Even if they did, is it going to fit you?
We did the ride in Cold Spring, and somebody, believe it or not, forgot their pedals.
Really?
Yeah.
What were they doing
How
off
do
the
you
bike?
forget the pedals? It's supposed to be on the bike.
They had flat pedals and they forgot their real pedals, their clip-ins.
Oh, okay.
No, they had the wrong shoes for the pedals.
Yeah, wrong shoes for the pedal. I got you. Okay. All right, buddy. We're going to go get ready. Good seeing you out here. You got helmets and everything. Yeah, they do forget that. Yeah, that's understandable. That's the first thing I pack because you can forget those. Victor! There's the man.
Look at the man.
How you doing? You got your packet yet?
No, I'm going to get
Okay,
it right now.
okay.
Where do you
Right in here.
Right here.
Let's go in that big hall.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
If you pre-register, it's to the left against the
No,
wall.
I didn't register yet. I'll do it.
Okay, yeah, they got
Okay, man.
tables there. Okay. All right, Victor. But she looks familiar,
Yeah.
and I can't really figure out why. You're on candid camera. Maurice, right?
I'd like to have gone.
Okay. We're here with the Team RR guys.
We're queued up and ready to go.
You do
That's
have kind
Steve's
of a
wife.
Sandra Bullock-y looking face.
I'm teasing her. She told me when I met her, she said I thought her face looked familiar. And she said she's probably familiar in features to Sandra Bullock. That's Mary. Mary had a crash and she's back out. She was in Colorado and she had a crash on her mountain bike. So it was good to see her out here. So she was on a mountain bike and hit some gravel and went down and she hurt her hand and
Across here.
you can see she's showing us the marks.
So that was flapped open when I saw my
Stitches.
white tendon. So you see a red. The guy was a mountain biker.
Regardless of what you think.
So when you fall in the rocks, it's just hard on the body. But it's good to see her out here.
Oh,
Okay. She hit her face as well, and it healed well. Mary's shirt says "Biker Chick" on it, so I posted it on the board for the Team RR guys. I was asking, are we supposed to call them Biker Chicks? And then Victor said, only if they ride with us. Is it politically correct to call them Biker Chicks? That's what her shirt says. That's Mike on the left, Paul H in the middle there. That's Steve to the right. Steve's wife's on the right. It's Randy, right here in the Texas jersey. I'm messing with Mary because I told her, I said when I heard about her crash, I said, we don't ride with our face. She needs to get out here. And so she's, that's what we're talking about. I said, we don't ride with our face. But it was good to see her out here.
Oh yeah, glad to see you.
I'm always messing with people.
He's right here. No.
Everybody's having fun. Just hanging out.
And it's a good cause.
Good morning.
That's Mark there on the left. This is a group photo we're taking. Somebody has a camera over there. I think they're using a phone. Taking a group photo. We're posing for it. So the police department in Cyprus and the police department from another part of town, they have some kind of competition where they're going to let them go 5 minutes ahead of us. That's what he's talking about. So you're going to hear me. You're going to hear me in a bit.
They're going to need more than 5 minutes. It's on.
Was that Mary who said that?
That's what's his name? Bob. Bob said, "Let the trash talking begin." We did the Heroes Ride leaving from the Montgomery County Fairgrounds. We all started out together. The first 35 kilometers were extremely fast, and so some people burned their matches too early. We stopped at the first rest stop. You can see where we left Paul a little behind in the second group. We stopped at the first rest stop and Paul continued. We went and we caught up with him. At this point, the group had split up. So Paul and I rode together. We picked up some groups along the way. We ended up coming back and hooking up with riders that had done the shorter route. You can see right there up to the right. That's where the routes converge. The shorter route turned there. They didn't do the extra loop we did. And so we picked up some riders on the way. We got some good clips. It was a very windy day coming, and there's a lot of hills. When we're coming back, we just fought the wind. So I hope you all will enjoy the clips that we got for you. It was a very good cause and a very, very challenging ride.
It's a retirement job, but this is an easy job.
Get set. Go.
All right.
I'm not going yet.
And we're off. That's Mary on the right here. That's Bob on the left in the chartreuse jersey. Bob rides on Sundays mostly with Team RR. That's Mark in front of Bob. We ended up starting really fast, and so after the first hour, the group just splintered and pretty much into little pockets, and everybody did their own thing. You know, as I explained in the route commentary, we hooked up with whoever we came across. You know, I just continued to plow ahead, and we were with Mike and them.
Yeah, it's on.
I'm telling Paul to make sure he turns on his computer, because even though you turn on your Garmin, until you start moving, it doesn't start recording if you have it on like auto pause, which is what we set ours on. That way you're not recording when you're stationary. And it's easy to forget in a mass start, because from the house when it beeps, you kind of aware of it. So that's what I was mentioning to him. But what I was saying was we ended up getting splintered, and you will see that. And then once we got past the third rest stop, I got a pebble caught under my brake caliper, which was rubbing on my rear wheel. We stopped and sorted that out real quickly. But by then, we just kind of held our own pace and picked up whoever we came across. So it ended up just being a very good ride. We did it in a little over 4 hours, which was very good with the conditions and the terrain. But it was a lot of fun. It's a beautiful day for a ride. You can see it says 20C. I think it's more like 18C when we get out there and the wind picks up. It ended up being a very mild day. It was probably no more than 25C, I believe, for the high. Mid-80s Fahrenheit. That's one reason in our area we have a lot of grand fondos in October, so for October and November, because the weather is so much milder. This is Technology Boulevard we're turning on. We've just left Airport Road. The county fairgrounds near the local airport in Conroe. Conroe is a town north of the city of Metro Houston. And most of the areas in Conroe and other parts of Montgomery County, you get a lot of rolling terrain. Much higher than the city of Houston as far as elevation. This is where everybody basically goes when we have these storms and we have a lot of flooding. They head north. When they have to evacuate.
See why I told you to put your water bottle on your bike? He said he forgot his.
Yeah.
Yeah, some guy said he forgot his water bottle, so he took a bottle from his wife, I believe. As I was telling Paul, when we were getting ready, I was going through a checklist, making sure, make sure you put your water bottle on your bike. The things that are easy to forget, we do that.
Easy to forget a water bottle.
To remind each other. So, and make sure you got your helmet on, that kind of stuff.
Come on the road to shoulder ends.
It's easy to get on a bike and forget your helmet. The helmets nowadays are very light. I've done it. Many cyclists have done it. You head out thinking you got your helmet on, and you don't.
Hey, that's that famous guy, Veloharmony guy, right there.
There's a rider here called me a famous guy. And right here, he takes his eye off and he loses his line a little bit. He catches himself. I told him to take it easy. He said that they're on Instagram and he watches all the channel stuff. So, yeah, he referred to me as that famous guy, and I don't see myself as famous. So I ride up and tell Paul, I didn't know I was famous. So they roll up the road. We'll see him again.
I was famous.
Paul I said, no, I was famous. Paul's laughing. But I guess I am. I guess I have some notoriety. But that's not the reason I do the channel. It's kind of, it's different. It's funny to hear somebody tell me I'm famous because I don't see myself as famous, but I kind of see where he's coming from. I'm just a guy who rides bikes. I guess. That's the way I see myself. But it's cool to come across people who follow the channel and to see just the reach we have. I mean, I see that through the comments and just the people that follow me on Strava. And so that's all nice, but it's different when someone like this guy says, there's that famous guy. And I was like, I thought he was talking about somebody else until he said the Veloharmony guy. I was like, oh, I guess he's talking about me. And so all I could say was, hey there, good morning, that's it. different. That's all. But anyway, we end up catching up to them later. There are quite a few riders. This rider being one of them on my right. I will point him out later. Early in the ride, people have a tendency to go a little too hard. They're excited, and they don't stay with their plan. And sometimes, you end up passing and repassing the same people. And you'll see that. We get on FM 1484. This road is unusual in that it's like a loop. It's one of the FM roads out here that go north, then east, then south, then west. So it's basically a big circle. It's one of the roads we end up coming back on that has a very bumpy chip seal surface. Paul and I don't care for it much, but it was more tolerable. I put the arrow on this guy because we're just kind of rolling out. He swings around and he accelerates, and then in a little while you would see us pass him again. So most of these guys that are moving up, we're gonna pass them. I'm sitting behind Steve here. Mary's on my right. And I'm content to sit here until the rest of the Team RR guys come. What I'm doing there is I'm checking the numbers. I could feel the bottom of the number flapping on me. We're trying to improve how we attach those numbers every time we use them. And I just revved up my cadence there. I'm trying to wake up my legs. And I probably hit like 130 RPM quickly. I do that several times in this ride to try to get my legs going. So I'm making sure, so what we're trying to do is to find out the best placement for the double-sided tape. We've identified that the 3 across works great. We identified that the middle works great. This is the guy again, you see? We just passed him again. So I don't know what he was doing that back there for. This is stuff I talk about, just people don't sip their energy. That's what I mean. So what happened is we're trying to identify that the placement of the tape influences how well that stuff stays. We've got 3 at the top, 1 in the middle, 3 on the bottom. The ones on the bottom did not hold based on where we placed them. If we put them on the back of our jersey, they would probably sit better. So for this kit, we put them down there because of how it's designed, and it just works great. You could always put it on the back of your jersey in the middle of your back. That would work too. So next time we use the numbers, what we're going to try is do 3 across, 1 in the middle, leave the bottom alone because they come loose anyway, even though they don't flap around too much. But we're trying to use the tape where only it is necessary to keep that number in place. But I like the system here. Victor saw it at the end of the ride. He's like, oh, that's a good idea. I ought to do that too. I like to do that. You don't have to deal with pins, and it's just a lot easier on your garments. This guy has a recliner. I really like his lighting. Just busy. Look at that. Just flashing around. The camera really is not keeping up with it because of the speed. His lights are faster than that. So the camera's catching maybe 1/3 of the flashes because of the shutter speed. He's one of those we pass back and forth. When the road starts going up, he has challenges on that thing. So now Victor went up, and these are the other Team RR guys. That's Maurice that I met earlier I was greeting people in the parking lot. So we just want to stay close to Team RR. We want to get past the early crowd here. What they did is they released people in groups. And the comment I made about the officers needing more than 5 minutes in their races because they're riding their patrol bikes. They've got all their patrol equipment, those heavy bags on there. 5 minutes for this group is not enough. And they were not racing us. And what I meant was we're going to have to deal with them anyway because they're staggering the starts to keep the groups apart. There's Mary on the left. Tim's up there. That's Randy. So I roll behind them. you're going to notice that my cadence stays very high the first part of this ride, most of it. This time of year I kind of start backing off the heavy stuff, so I start to focus more on keeping my legs supple, especially in a long ride like this. The first hour you want to just make sure you conserve it. I'm just checking the tape because I can feel it. It feels like it's lifting, and that helps me know what to do next time. So learning from the experience, but the system works really well. But basically what I'm doing is keeping my legs fresh. It helps them warm up. It helps me conserve the use of my glycogen, and basically less fatigue to my major muscles by keeping my cadence up. You want to make sure that you've trained. Don't just go and start doing 100 RPMs if you normally do 80, especially in an organized ride, because you can blow. So use your cruising cadence when you're warming up. Don't go below it. Warm up at the cadence that you're comfortable with. That will keep your legs supple for the second, third, and fourth hour. However long your ride is. I came across this guy here in front of me. I think I put an arrow on him. I noticed that he was bouncing quite a bit. And it was just hard not to notice that. And I think it's more pronounced later than right here, but I could see the camera doesn't really do it justice. The guy on the right there, he's really bouncing, and that says something's off with his fit. Just looked like he's not made it right there. He's not made it to his machine. It's hard to miss that kind of stuff. Everybody's fit can use a tweak here and there. You know, there are different grades of fitness as far as fit to the bike. I shouldn't call it fitness in terms of your aerobic fitness or, you know, physical fitness, but I'm talking about your harmony with your bike. There are different levels. Some people are okay, some people are better than other. You know, it's something that you have to work on and constantly improve to the point where you feel like, okay, I'm there. Especially if you're doing it yourself. And that's why people spend so many years trying to perfect it, and they end up just living with issues because they really don't understand how to get it to that last percentage. That's why people get a professional fit, because it will help you cross that last line to where you don't have to deal with these little niggling issues. You see that guy over there? Look at him. He's bouncing on the ride. Look at him right there. He's bouncing. Almost like he's got like springs on his seat. That's what I'm talking about. That's inefficient. And you can bounce if you're carrying too high a cadence that your body's not ready for. If your brain has not developed the neuromuscular pathways with your muscles, and you don't really know how to go through the cycle when you're pedaling, you can bounce because the cadence just beyond your reach. And so you need to back off the cadence to where you're under control. Because bouncing while you're pedaling is not efficient. All that movement is using energy. The camera has what is called a Dutch angle here. What's happening is we're on a chip seal road. We have quite a bit on the rural highways in Texas. There's a gentleman, supporter of the channel, Joe Nanga. He's going to come join us in a couple of weeks to ride with us. He says they've got a bunch of it in North Texas. He lives in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And he says they have quite a bit of that on the highways. It's low maintenance for the state. You can see the little rocks that look like rocks, almost like little holes. What they do is they lay down tar, drop the rocks, and they don't really smooth the asphalt. And they let the traffic grind it in. These roads are not easily washed away. They don't crack as easily as the smooth asphalt, and that's why they do it. And chances are they probably cost less to do. But we have quite a bit, you know, on and off. I mean, not every road is like this. And so, yeah, it has a lot of resistance. Right here, we're going up a grade. It says 4%, yeah, 3-4%. And you can see we're gonna roll around this guy on his reclining, recumbent bicycle again. He's more aero when we're going downhill, but once the road starts to go up, he's at a disadvantage. So all I'm doing here is I signal to Paul that we're going. I'm gonna ride up to the Team RR guys, because this is where we start to separate from all the early starters. There is a large group up the road. We're not aware of it at this point. When they started the ride, they moved people in waves. And you know, when we got out on Technology Boulevard, we were chatting and so forth. So those guys probably took off. It was a big group. So they're up the road. We'll catch up to them. The power's off. We're going downhill. I'm just checking for traffic. When I ride these kind of roads solo, I think I've mentioned it before, I don't coast. I ride up the climbs and I ride down the climbs. So what I do is I keep my power even. I don't hammer the climbs and then coast like these guys do. So for me, this is like a break because I'm used to riding downhill. So when they do that, if you notice, my heart rate dropped all the way to 137. It dropped probably about 20 beats. So the fact that I'm keeping my cadence really high and I've prepared my body to handle these triple-digit cadences, my legs are taking a break and I'm stressing my aerobic system. This helps me warm up quickly without getting the burn that you get in your legs when you push too large a gear. That's Mark on my right there. Paul's directly behind. Now the camera's doing a Dutch angle because of all the bumps. That's what I was trying to say when I was talking about the chip seal. You hear that? The camera's bouncing on Paul's brake caliper because he's holding it next to the brake caliper. So when the road is bumpy, those little pebbles or whatever they did, see here, it looks a little smoother, then it will get a little rough. Anytime he hits a bump, you will hear that. So what happens, the gimbal says that I've got too much load on the motor, so the calibration goes off. So it's trying to adjust, and we get a Dutch angle, which is a hard shot to do by yourself manually. It's a nice shot. I mean, it's beautiful, but that's what the gimbal's trying to realign the camera. You hear that rattling? That's putting more weight on the gimbal. Anytime something touches the gimbal, the body of the gimbal, it's almost like you're overloading it. So the calibration will go off because it thinks that the weight of the camera plus whatever is touching it says, I've got too much I'm dealing with. We turn here on, I think this is Cedar Lane. And so Paul tries to reset it. Paul turns off the gimbal. He turns it back on, and you can see it's recalibrated for the moment. We're on Cedar Lane here. Now, I went ahead and edited over there because when he turned it off, it took him a while before he turned it back on because you're riding. You don't have time to just focus on that. But that was basically what he did. That's one way to recalibrate the gimbal. You will see I will do a different one, a different style when he hands it to me later. Because if you hit a bump, the road can be smooth like this and you hit a pothole and it can be too much for the gimbal. Then it goes out of whack and it will try its best to recalibrate. Another thing I do is I spin it around. If you do a 360 with the camera, while you know the gimbal itself, get the camera to spin around, the gimbal will recalibrate momentarily. So after Paul gave it to me, that's what I end up doing because it was still off. Because when we're riding, I've already told Paul, when we're riding hard, we just ride. I'm not going to worry about that gimbal too much. Let it just do its thing. But it does its best. But at some point, if you hit a bump or the road's rough, it just stresses it to the point where it can't keep the frame the same. You will see that down the road where it kind of lowers the frame, and you know, Paul tries to accommodate it, but it gives us good shots. You get to see the wheels and the gearing. So, you know, I think that's all cool. That's Victor up there. Maurice is next to him. I'm not sure who's pulling at this moment. It's like we're coming up on a rider. Mike is up there as well. If you notice, I have not gone to the front. This is 21 minutes into a 4-hour ride. It's not the time to be riding as fast as we are, but we are. Now, we're not going super hard right this minute, for me anyway, but you'll see right here, every time the road goes up, these boys press on the pedals, which is what Team RR does. So it's not out of character for them. So you can see right here, we're pressing on the pedals. We'll go around Mary here. That's Tim right there. Paul comes on the left, closing the gaps. Now, I'm not trying to jump up to Randy because I know I can do this effort all day. I just stay on that effort because they're not going anywhere. That's what you have to do. You don't need to get all excited. I keep the power steady and I ride up to them. That keeps my effort even. There's a rider on the right. We'll go around him. Paul's behind another rider that's hanging with us here. I go around Randy because he's got a gap there. And then the power's off. I kind of soft pedal for a bit. So Randy gets behind me. The power's off. You can see I'm soft pedaling. I think we're going to start descending slightly, but you can see it as another climb in the distance. You always got to be looking ahead. You can see I'm a little to the left. So I can see around those guys. I want to know what's coming. I'm familiar with the area. Something about being on the bicycle. You ride somewhere once, you remember. I remember all the climbs. Last year when Paul was not well, at this point of the ride, this is where we rode away from him, in this area. I remember all of these climbs. They're here. In this part of town, we have harder climbs and we have more climbs. This is east of 45. There's a rider on the right. That's what Randy's letting Paul know they're going to move left. We'll go around them. So now we're picking off. All the riders are started too fast ahead of us. They didn't necessarily start with us, but, well, I wouldn't say they started too fast. I mean, we're going pretty fast ourselves, but it's just that we're picking up all these riders. And what ends up happening when we come across the large group, it gets a little tricky because they keep slowing down. And, you know, it's just when you're sitting in a large group, you're not working that hard. And we wanted to get around them and get some kind of consistent riding going. Because there was a lot of yo-yoing when we hooked up with that large group up the road. You'll see. There's another rider up there that we're going to go around. And this is not out of character for Team RR. 35 kilometers an hour in the first hour. That's about what they do every weekend. So this is how they ride. That's basically it. They hammer the first hour, and then we get the taco corner, and everybody decides whether they're gonna go back home or go out. But on this ride, there's no taco corner. In fact, Mark ends up finding a Valero out here. I didn't even know he knew this area, but he knew there was a store. He ended up stopping to get some energy drink, and you know, we kept on going to the official rest stop. So that's Victor and Maurice up here. Maurice is in front of Victor. Victor ended up mentioning that this was Maurice's first long ride in a while. His training's been off, and so, you know, he ended up riding with Maurice later, letting him know, just sit on my wheel, you know. guy's having an issue on the right. I'm not sure what was going on with him, but it was good to see he was well off the road. That's what you want to do. You have an issue or a mechanical, don't stand on the road. It's an open road. You got to get off the road. We're moving. So this is fast. Okay, 34, 33. What is a 1% climb, whatever, but we're riding these climbs repeatedly, and this is going to be a long day on the bike. So all I'm doing is sitting in and letting my body warm up gradually. That's why I'm not pulling right now. And you can see the cadence that I'm staying in close to 100 or more. I'm not really thinking about it. I'm just keeping my legs fluid, keeping my gears light. I mean like a 53-23 or something like that. From what I can see, yeah, 53-22, because I got a 28 back there. A 53-23 is a fairly low gear. That's why I'm spinning at 105 to do 33. I'm intentionally keeping my gearing a little lower than normal. You can see right there, you can see really well. 28, 25, yeah, I'm in the 23. So the 28 is the biggest physical size cog I've got back there. I'm spinning a lot faster than most people. You got to make sure you can tolerate this, as it gives me a lot of snap. So even though the road's going up here, I move up. I don't chase Victor because he's mustering a big gear. He might be doing 65 RPMs and that. I'm like, he's not going anywhere with that. But he ended up telling me later that he chose to just ride one gear today. So, that was his plan anyway. So he just kept it in a large gear. And you will see later when the hills kick in and people were going hard, he was getting gapped because it takes him a while to get that gear rolling. I ended up going around him once anyway. There is a turn coming up here. This road is the Willis County Line Road. And right on the corner here, this is something you always want to look out for, right there. That's gravel. Don't lean your bike in there. So I avoid it. And we call it out to everybody to let them know. Because if you lean into the gravel, you don't know how your wheel's going to track. And sometimes even when you go straight through gravel, if there's a lot of gravel, you really want to slow down. And you want to grab your bars and be ready for any kind of twitchiness that might come. Because gravel is not your friend on two wheels, even when you're riding a mountain bike. That's what Mary was telling us about. She hit a gravel patch that she was not aware of. It was like a multi-level gravel patch. She didn't see it very well. And the mountain bike she was using was not hers. And it didn't have suspension or anything. It just wasn't tracking very well. So it was an unexpected crash. But it kept her from riding with us for the last month or so. And she had to go through a lot of pain because she had a lot of injuries that needed to be dealt with. So it was really great to see her back today. So I was teasing her and telling her, you should have been out the next day. We don't ride with our face. So what if you fell on your face? That's just me messing around. That's a bump we hit again. So all these little bumps, if you hit them and that gimbal bounces, that's what I was talking about. The picture starts getting a little out of whack. You can see right there my head's getting cut right at the top. It's not tracking like it usually does because it should readjust, But we're too busy riding to mess with it right now. We sort it out in a little while. The Victor's still sitting at the front. I believe Maurice is there. And now the ride is on in its earnest because now it's 30 minutes into the ride. As far as I'm concerned, that's a proper warm-up for my body. Anything over 15 minutes, I'm ready to go. So I just sit in and I keep myself relaxed. These roads are very deceiving. You can see we're doing 49 kilometers an hour, and I wasn't pedaling. You go from climbs to like -3 descent. Now look at that. We're back to 2-3%. Lose all that speed. I think this is where we're coming up on this group. Yeah. There's a big group up here. You hear somebody say slowing. I think it's Mark. So that's the group. We lashed onto the back. Our speed dropped significantly. This is where Paul gives me the camera. When I get the camera, I immediately spin it around 360. Boom. It recalibrates for the moment. So then I turn it to the back. That's Tim back there. I'm not sure who the other riders are. That's Mark. Mark is on the right over there. You can see his arm. Tim's on my left. Well, on my right, left of the screen. So that's one way to get the gimbal to recalibrate real quickly. And sometimes it'll work for a while. Ended up having to turn it off and back on, similar to what Paul did. So we're sitting at the back of this group. All of a sudden, I mean, the impetus is gone, the effort. I'm just coasting and kind of rolling along. This is what you get in a very large group on a flat road. You're not always working very hard. That's how these guys can do 250 kilometers in a big race. They sit in until it's necessary to put an effort on a climb or a particular part of the race where you can make a difference, you know, where the terrain makes it hard enough. So you're not riding hard for the whole time. A lot of these riders stayed in this group to do their ride. That was their choice. I preferred to work most of the route, so we didn't stay behind them too long. We stayed for a bit. Mike over there is over the yellow line frequently. I don't know why. He just needs to find a spot and use one side of the lane. So you can see we're just kind of rolling. Soft pedaling, coasting. There's not a whole lot of effort going on right now. Time for you to drink, deal with whatever may be ailing you or bothering you, stand up a few strokes, stretch your back, whatever. So you're ready when it's time to go hard. The guy's blowing because Mike keeps juggling over that yellow line.
One lane, guys. You don't have to worry about the car.
I don't mess around with the yellow line unless I'm passing. If I pass, get it over with. You know, there's a bunch of us blocking this whole lane. You got to at least leave that other lane for these people to get by. The road's not closed. The gimbal's still affected by the bumps. That's why you see me moving it around and so forth. I'm not sure what's going on with that guy. He's walking the opposite way. I don't know if he's part of this group. But right here, the road starts to go up. And you can see everybody's working. This is when you work in the group. When the road's going up, there's no drafting is not that much of an advantage. You got to pedal. You got to put the power down. So I ride around Randy, get up here, and the power's off again. We're at the crest of this little climb. It says 2%. That rider's pulled out of off the road. Not sure what's going on with her. That's Tim in the white jersey there. That's Mark on the left behind Tim. I'm sitting over on the right. You see my shadow. A lady in the blue on the bike there moving up. She moved up. She's signaling, I guess, that she wants to come over. And I'm kind of watching to see what they're doing in this group. There were quite a few places where we'll be slowing, and there were some riders near my vicinity here that kept braking really hard as opposed to just coasting. It just seemed to be uncomfortable in the proximity of other cyclists. And they just, they were just overreacting. Somebody would say slowing, and then some guy ended up locking his rear wheel. You could hear it, the rear tire twitching. It's like he was panicking, and it wasn't anything that was necessary. So you hear them yelling, slowing, and this and that. So Randy's moving across the yellow line. I guess they're moving. I think the road's going up here. I'm not sure at this point what's going on. I'm just kind of hanging back here. Paul's up ahead. That's Mark in front of me. I'm not sure what they're doing, but I'm just kind of watching to see when we're going to get the opportunity to ride away from this group. I don't plan on riding behind them for 4 hours, 3.5 hours. It would just be too easy of a ride if I were to sit in this bunch. Right here, I turn the camera off and turn it back on. Turn the gimbal off and it recalibrates. You can see how the screen is set. So I did exactly what Paul did at that corner, and from this point on, it seemed to behave itself. So. Because when you're holding the gimbal, you can tell if the camera is level with the horizon or not. And I like to catch it before it gets too bad of a shot. So I don't want to waste the opportunities of getting this shot, these clips. That's Bob in front of the guy, the fire marshal in the red. Bob rides with us on Sundays. The ride got, this part when we started to go, it just got too hard. One thing people don't understand is not every ride, I've mentioned it before, not every ride the fast guys go really hard. So some people get excited and say, oh, I'm improving because today's ride felt easy. Well, maybe it was easy because the guys who usually make it hard may not have been there, or they were riding easier. So you always get, that's why I don't like people to judge themselves by other people. Look at the effort you put out. Right there, somebody locked up their brakes. It just says slowing and they panicked. So I said, you don't need to lock up, just slow down. You keep braking that hard every time, you'll run out of tires because that's your rubber on the road there. That was the rear tire twitching like that. And at that point, I decided that at the next opportunity, I would go ahead and ride to the front. So we rolled through a few downhills, and all of a sudden, I begin to feel that the road's going up here. See a lot of riders passing. I see Paul up there. I drift a little to the left. This guy looks like he's moving over, so I wait. So I don't want to expend too much energy. Get too excited, you end up just wasting all your energy in one effort. I like to dose mine out, so I move over here. The guy in the red didn't move. You see Randy was going, he went nowhere. So I go around Randy. I tell them, car up, because there are other people behind me, and I drift back over the yellow line, and I continue my effort here. That's why you don't want to go too hard too soon, because I want to get around them and ride up to those guys up the road, but do it steadily, and you will see what I'm talking about. So right here, that lady had been moving up through the bunch, she and this guy. So I come around them, they're holding their pace. I come around them, you'll see what I'm talking about. I'm holding a pace that I know I can do for a very long time. It doesn't matter how much gap those guys have, because they were up the road while I was in the back of the bunch. That's Paul and them up there. And so I'm just dosing out my effort. Now watch. I just passed that lady and that guy. They're gonna come around me. Right here. And I watch just their body language. They're going a lot harder than they can sustain. So all I do is I increase my cadence. And I'm right there. I just sit on her wheel for a bit. See the guy in the middle looking around. That's a sign that he's not firing. Once you start looking around, because if you're firing, you don't care what's going on behind you. Unless you're just briefly checking, but they came around me and actually ended up slowing down. So I decided, okay, I'm just gonna sit here. Then I see Paul right here. As we go by him, I tell him to come on. You may not hear it on camera. Now I know there's a rest stop at there's a corner coming up. There's a rest stop up there on the left. We're not going to participate in that rest stop. We just started riding, and it's a cool morning. All my bottles are still relatively full. So you can see I ride back up to these guys. So I had backed up a little bit to make sure Paul got in my wake. Sometimes even if it's not drafting, just being next to somebody spurs you on. I can tell right here the impetus of this group is gone. So I spin the camera around to see what I can pick up. Not a whole lot. The bunch is still back there. We're off the front. That bunch never catches back up to us. We just basically, at this point, we keep the effort up enough to make sure we don't have to deal with them again. So we turn here. This road is, I believe, Rose Road. These guys are sitting in the middle of the road. I'm like, what are they doing? So we turn. I continue riding. Those were the guys Paul was riding with. That's Team RR. That's Mark that we just passed. That's Team on the right here. And I think Mike is up there in the blue. That's Maurice on the left. I don't know what they're doing here, because if you're going to be riding, let's ride. Let's do this. So I'm just sitting on Tim's wheel right here. This road goes to a farm to market road called 1097. And 1097 looks like a road where you take a rug or something and flip it and you get all these waves of rollers in it. That's what it is, up and down, and it's relentless. I love that road. This guy coming up to the back of my wheel here, the guy in the light brown jersey there, I think he's the one that would say, let's go, something like that. You'll hear it in a little bit. Because right here, Maurice goes past those guys in the front and basically rides off the front. And you have to know what your goal is. You can't just follow everybody. So the guy at the front cannot get on Maurice's wheel. So Maurice continues to open a gap. I'm just sitting here. I'm on Tim's wheel. I think in a little while, Tim starts looking around. And then somebody in the back says, yeah, go, go, go. You know, kind of like that. So Maurice is up the road. He's probably about maybe 4 car lengths. I mean, it's a good gap. So Tim's looking around like he wants to do something, but I don't know what he's doing. I'm just sitting. So somebody said, go, go. So I told him, go ahead. He wanted to go. He should have just signaled or moved. I mean, I wasn't blocking him or anything. So Tim goes. Then Mark goes. These are the guys behind us coming around now. I guess this pace is too slow. That's Paul H. Then Randy. And then Mike. Now it seems close as the camera's in my left hand. It's not that close. So when Mike goes, I get on Mike's wheel. Tim did not make the bridge up to Maurice. And Tim does not want to waste his energy, so he's saving it. There is a turn coming up. We're going to be turning right on the FM 1097. That's what Randy is signaling. This 1097 goes from east to west. It's a highway that's all over this area. I just spun the camera around to just get a shot of who's back there briefly, and then I will ride up to those guys. This is a heavily traveled route by cyclists. It's going to take us to a highway 150 up the road. So one thing you have to realize is that a lot of times people will go hard, and they go harder than they're used to, and they got to take a break. And so if you notice, we'll go hard, and all of a sudden I'm coasting. Like right here, I'm coasting. I'm not even pedaling. 44 kilometers an hour. The road is kind of rolling. It says -1. It's going to flatten out real quickly because this thing is up and down, and it's windy. Now I start to pedal as the road starts to level off. We're going to go a little to the right. The road's going to curve. It's a beautiful highway. I just like the width of the shoulder, and it's relatively clean. So we didn't have the need to use the main lanes that much. Now you see what Randy did up there? Mike had to move left. That's Randy moving real drastically. He continued to do that. I had to tell him, and you will hear me tell him, hold your line. The harder it got, the more erratic Randy got. You know, he kept looking behind and then fishtailing as he would look behind. And Victor was sitting on his side, and it was causing Victor to move left towards the traffic. And we're behind Victor. You know, there was no overlap or anything, but I was like, hold your line. He was all the way to the right on the shoulder. So you have to make your movements smoother when you're riding in close proximity to other riders. No drastic moves. You don't need to startle anybody. If you're startling people, you're doing it wrong. That's Paul behind me. That's Paul's bike. Yeah, there he is. And then Victor's back there also. I think Victor ends up coming around me. I guess he didn't like the gap I was leaving here. I was just hanging back. We're not going hard. I'm in zone 1. So Victor comes around. I go ahead and ride up to him. After I saw Randy do that fishtail thing, I decided I was going to just keep a little distance and see what these boys are doing. Because, you know, when you're not going hard, you don't need to be tied up on somebody. When it's fast, that's when I get really close. And it's actually smoother at that point, because everybody's just riding. See, Victor has to move left because Mark moved over because somebody in front of Mark made some kind of move. It's, you know, it's a chain reaction. You see where Randy is all the way on the right. There is no reason for us to be affected by him, but periodically we were. So Mark moved around Randy. Randy's kind of drifting back. Now Randy's behind Mark, so he's in front of Victor. And this is the configuration we carried until it got, even after it got really hard. And when it got hard, then Victor and I ended up riding up to those guys. once Randy let us go. So every time the road goes up, people will press on right here. It may say 1, it's probably 1 to 2. This is like a 3 to 4% periodic climbs on this road. It's constantly going up. You're gaining elevation. You can see Victor's having to adjust because of Randy's movements. All I'm doing is I'm riding the white line, and the camera's to my left, so it appears I'm not in the lane. I'm pretty much where Victor is, and I'm not overlapping, but I'm close. See, he moved over again because Randy did something he didn't like. So in a little bit, you will hear me tell Randy to hold his line.
Randy, hold your line.
Because of what he did, Victor swerved to the left. And at this point, we left Randy behind because you can see the gap. We were riding up to those guys. They pressed on, and he started looking behind and swerving. I'm not sure why. He should have just stayed to the right. We would have come around him. I sit on Victor's wheel here, but what I'm looking at is the fact that Victor chooses to ride a very large gear at this point, so it takes him a while to wind it up. But he looks like he's making progress, so I just sit there. If you look at my cadence, I'm close to 100. Victor's probably doing 60 to 70, if that. And that's what he chose to do at this point on this day, you know. And I see him closing up to them, so I just sit there. When you're carrying a large gear like that, you cannot accelerate as quickly as somebody who's carrying a smaller ratio. So this is a good example to show that. So they may be putting out the same watts, but those guys are getting there a lot quicker, and he has to get his momentum. And you can see we're getting closer here. The road is leveling off. I'm backing off my pedaling. You can see because the power's off up there, and he's closing up to them now. So if you use a very large gear in a situation where you need acceleration, you will have problems. So you have to choose wisely. Victor's trying to work on something, and that's what he's doing right here. You need to choose the appropriate gears for you. So we get back on them. At this point, I'm not sure. I don't know if I turn the camera around or not, but I don't hear a whole lot of people behind us. I think Tim's behind me. So there's like 6 of us. So that once again, the road starts to go up. See, the grade says 1%. I love this highway. It is relentless. And now it's going back up. And the gap begins to open again. And I think in a little bit, I ride around Victor to get up there. Somewhere here. Because it's going to take him a while to wind his gear up. So right here, I go around him. I move a little over the white line. I go around him. And I think Tim probably comes with me. Whoever's on my wheel comes with me. And I go ahead and ride up to these guys. So because my cadence is lighter, I'm carrying a more moderate gear. I can rev it up quicker without that much strain to my legs. So they didn't slow down. I just rode up to them. Oh, I turned the camera around. Okay, so Tim is on my wheel. Yeah, Tim is on my wheel, and then Victor. So it's Tim, Victor, myself, and the 3 guys in front. So Randy and Paul and them are in the second group on the road. And that's what you have to do. You have to do what Randy was doing. You know, hang with the A group or whatever as long as you can. And then when you're at the point where I need a break, you just kind of drift back to the B group and sit there and catch your breath. And then keep trying that. And eventually you'll be able to go longer with the faster group. That's how you can improve. as you do more work in between the group rides. Don't depend on the group rides to make you fast. You got to do work in between to prepare yourself. That's Mike pulling up there. Mike was the one I made the video about rest and recovery. So it looked like he got some rest. He's firing well today. Sitting a little to the left of Maurice's wheel. I have not overlapped, but I'm close. Probably about 8 inches away, something like that. Maurice rides really smooth, so I don't worry about him if I can get close. I think Mike's done. I think he just tapped out. And so Mark's gonna take over. This ended up being a very fast 35 kilometers. So the first hour of this ride was fast. So in a little while, we stopped at a rest stop. I didn't really film anything, so I just end up switching from what we're doing here to after the split, because the group splits. Mark ends up stopping at a Valero to get an energy drink. We continue on to the official ride stop. Paul continues riding. He lets me know that he's going to go on ahead. You know, he figured we'll catch up to him, which we ended up doing. But at that point, the group broke up. It was just myself, Mark and Tim, Mike and Tim. We continued until we got to the third rest stop. So this whole part of the ride is hard. We're riding hard here. Even though I'm sitting in and I'm saving some energy by being in the draft because of all this wind. So we're on FM 1725, headed north. Very windy. This part of the ride is after the third stop. It's Paul, Maurice, and Victor's up there. I hand Paul the camera here.
Ready.
I told him the camera was ready to film because we had turned it off. And I roll up. In a short while, I'm going to pick up, like, my tires are very soft compound tires. So they picked up a little pebble off of this road and it got stuck. There's a dog over there. That's what we're yelling at him so he can stay off the road. But the pebble got stuck under my brake caliper, and there's not a whole lot of clearance between my tire and the brake caliper, and it was rubbing on my tire. At the time, I didn't know what it was. But, you know, any kind of noise, you kind of want to deal with it. So I ride up with Victor here. He's still muscling a big gear like he was doing earlier in the ride. We're about 2.5 hours into this ride, so we got about an hour and a half left. At this point, I'm ready to ride. The group has disintegrated because the first hour was so hard, and people decided, some people did the 54-mile route. We're doing the 76. So the road's going slightly downhill here. He's coasting. I'm kind of soft pedaling a bit. And I think I'll go around him here. Yeah. So now the way I ride is when the road goes up in a group, I don't necessarily put down a lot of watts to break up the group. I end up downshifting to keep the effort the same. That's the way I ride in a group. Other people do different things, and you know, everybody is free to do what they want. So I pull for a bit. Victor gets behind me. You can see right up there the road's gonna go up. So what I do when I get to it is I downshift because I want to keep the effort in the same zone. Yeah, I could go harder, but I don't want to break up the group. Well, Victor goes hard because he goes hard on every hill that he encounters. Then he'll back up. Right here, I pick up something, and I'm looking at my wheel, and Paul can hear the noise. It's like this loud on my tire. So we go ahead and pull off in here.
Let's go here, man.
because I want to find out what the noise is. Anytime you get a noise, an unusual noise, you want to find out what it is before you do more damage.
Yeah.
So the rock got jammed under my brake caliper, and it was just grinding into my tire.
Rubbing like it did the last time. I can see the mark.
That's what
Right
Paul's
there.
talking about. He can
Remember
see the
that one
mark
time?
on the tire from the rock.
It's rubbing against something. There.
So when I spin
Right
it,
there.
it's catching.
Keep rolling.
So I thought it was the brake at first. I end
Right
up,
there.
I look under there, I don't see anything, so I end up opening the brake from the front. There's a latch on the
Yeah.
front of the bike. I'm looking to see if I can find that. I think I end up checking the spokes because the noise sounded like something metallic.
No, the
I
wheel.
heard it. That's what,
Yeah.
So I open
It's
up the
rubbing
brake
on
right
one
there. I squeeze the
area
lever,
like
I
it
open
did
the
last
brakes.
time, but it was on a blue bike.
This is what you do when you're taking off your wheel. Once I opened the brake
Yeah.
and I spun the wheel, it grabbed
Like
right
there
there.
is
Then it came
something
off.
stuck in the brake.
Yeah, that's when I saw it.
It came off.
It just picked up. There you go. Now it's out.
Man,
I
because
opened the
of
brake,
the
it came
caliper.
off.
It's not
So it
one
was
front.
stuck
Yeah.
under my caliper,
Something from the road
Yeah.
got caught under the brake caliper.
and it was basically grinding into my tire. So I'm glad I stopped because it can basically cut your tire. You know, some little rock.
One thing I said, they went with that.
So
Yeah.
basically, got that sorted out and got back on the highway.
So it's rubbing on the tire.
Okay.
And I'm explaining to Paul what it was. Whenever you hear a noise, you got to check it out. Don't keep riding unless you're sure what's causing the noise. If I hadn't stopped, it would have torn up my tire.
Yeah.
It was jammed under the circular brake caliper that I have and just grinding into my tire. So just debris that stuck to the tire and got carried up to the brake caliper. So we pick up a bunch of riders here. This is after the interchange where we hook up with people who are doing a 54-mile ride. We did the 76, and so we're headed in, and these guys did the 54. And we come across here, they're rolling up on us. There's a couple of guys up the road off the front, but when they roll up here, they slow down. So I move left. I don't want to go this slow. We're on a road called FM 3081. We're headed southwest. This guy on the right, Paul says he remembered him from the Spirit ride. He was riding a white Cervelo at the time.
I remember you.
So Paul tells him, I remember you.
With the white Cervelo, the shotgun, the long legs, that one that I used to class.
I didn't remember him. We didn't sit to chat. So a lot of times I remember people's bikes more than their faces, unless I get a chance to sit with them after they take off their helmets and stuff. So at this point, we've got about maybe an hour left in the ride. I'm ready to wrap it up. All I'm doing here is basically zone 2. This is what we normally do when we're out riding. Zone 2 for me anyway. I was aware that these guys were there and they were following. I just kept it steady. I was just riding our pace, our ride. So after picking up that little stone that got stuck in my caliper, I focused on staying on the cleaner part of the road. It happened because Victor was coming by, and I moved over to the right of the white line on that particular road, and there was a lot of debris there. Just a small rock stuck to the tire. You know, it just got carried up to the caliper. That doesn't happen very frequently, but it can happen. And I ride a 28 on this bike, and the Campy caliper is a flat caliper, so it doesn't have a lot of clearance. It's got enough, but it doesn't take much to start rubbing. We're gonna be turning left soon. I let them know that there's a rider on the right, so I know they're back there. Paul and I have done this route since we did the Heroes Ride a year ago. We did this in the winter. It was very cold, and it was like a 7+ hour ride for us. Not just this course, it was part of a longer route. I'm calling the gravel, tell people to slow down. The guy in the red takes an inside line. Yeah, I don't take gravel for granted because we only got 2 tires. If you slide too much, you can go down, especially the front wheel. I see this climb and I decide to just do something different here. I've got a nice rhythm going.
Where's your Velo at? See that? I see.
It's like there, right,
This is a 4% climb. Oh, it says 6. Oh, it's higher than that. Okay. There's more. You can see the road going up between the trees up ahead. This entire road here is uphill. We're off of 3081. We're on a road called Bowder Trailer Road. Going directly into the south wind. Basically riding at sweet spot. I'm not really going that hard and just keeping the effort steady. I figure if anybody wants to go faster, they can just come around and I'll just latch onto their wheel. These guys roll to the front. I see the gap. And I get onto their wheel. I shift up to the big chain ring. I had been riding the small chain ring. I shifted to the big chain ring and moved it back up in the back and just roll up to these guys. They're doing the same effort I was doing, so it gives me a break. The day got cloudier as we went along, so I turned on my light. And Paul turned his on as well. Because when we started, it was sunny, relatively. Got more overcast. I sit on their wheel. The pace is comfortable. They're not going too slow. They're not going too fast. So there's no reason for me to do anything different. I had been sitting at the front for quite a while once we went around them earlier. This rider here is sitting on the side of the road eating. That's not an official rest stop. So I guess he's not able to eat while he's riding, or he rode too much, too fast, too far, and ran out of energy. But he's sitting on his frame eating by the side of the road. There's a rest stop up ahead, so I guess he figured he wouldn't even make it there. But you have to learn how to eat while you're riding when you ride multi-hour events or multi-hour rides. So we're nearing the next rest stop here. We are not going to stop. We're basically taking this in. There should be an intersection up ahead, and after going through the intersection, we'll pass the rest stop on the right. The road goes up a little bit, nothing significant. I just use my cadence to keep the speed. So right through this intersection, this will get us to the rest stop. Since we're not stopping, I wait for that blue car, and I use the opposite side of the road to get around. There's a lot of people on the road here. We see some of the people that we had started with earlier in the year in the ride. They're telling us to be safe, and so wave that up. This guy was the guy early in the ride that I pointed out. I remember his shorts. And this road, I'm telling Paul, this is the road that has a lot of chip seal and very bumpy. The officer gets out there to check, keep the intersection. We thank him. So we used the road. The last time we came through here, we used that little shoulder. The shoulder is worse than the road. So I told Paul we need to just use the road. We don't stay on it too long. In a little while, it will take us to a turn, and the road is much smoother. There's a road called Mills Road or something like that we get on. So Mills Road takes us to a road called Willis-Waukegan Road. And this road is headed kind of a northwesterly direction, but mostly west. We're heading back to the Montgomery County Fairgrounds. We'll come across some ladies on bikes here. We'll roll past. A lady gets up, that tells me she's not happy with that saddle too much. Because she got up and just sat down. She's changing that spot she's sitting on. We've all been there, done that. So Paul rolls to the front, take the lead. That wind, you hear it pounding. We couldn't do much chatting unless we were right next to each other because of the wind. Some of the Team RR guys are ahead of us, quite a bit of them. I don't really know where they are. I think they did different routes once we got through the first hour. Because you still had a choice of doing the 54 after the first hour. I take the lead here. It's very windy and this road is very deceiving. It is not very flat, it's undulating. And it's one of those where you get to a 3%, you'll feel it more than you see it. We had quite a bit of those. So you have to know what the terrain is allowing you to do and what effort level you want to stay in. Otherwise, it takes the fun out of being out there. I stand up just to change the way I'm using my muscles. This is, it's at 2%. It was a very deceiving climb, like I mentioned. It just came up on us, and then we got the wind blowing. So I stood up. It felt good to stand. I stayed in the same effort level, same zone. Just kept the gear rolling. Now once I sit, I go ahead and downshift at least one car, so I get my cadence up over 70. This is the time of the ride where if you want to push harder, that's what you do. It's towards the end of the ride. You know, I'm really not working very hard because I'm trying to keep it under zone 4. So it just felt good against the wind and these climbs to use a slightly larger gear and drop my RPM a bit just to change things up. It's not a whole lot of fun to do the same thing the entire ride. You have to have a reason for doing what you're doing. We're coming up to our turn up there that will take us towards the Montgomery County Fairgrounds. There's an officer monitoring that intersection. I check for traffic and move in the left lane. So the officer sees us coming. He goes in the middle of the intersection. We happen to have the green light for the turn anyway. We have the green arrow, but he's making sure traffic stops. So we thank him and we roll over. I check on the right to make sure nobody's coming on that side. Intersections are an Achilles heel for all road users, not just cyclists. Even when you're in a car. You know, you guys in Europe, you have a lot of traffic islands. Those are tricky. If someone doesn't know how to use them, you can have a lot of issues. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are aware of that. So don't play with intersections. That's where most of the mishaps occur. Especially if someone's not paying attention. So I'll go ahead and give this guy encouragement here as we go by because he's riding alone into the wind. You don't hear it, but I tell him, you can do it, come on. With the wind, the camera couldn't pick it up. Just to spur him on. It's tough riding alone in the wind. That's what I tell Paul. So at this point of the ride, I edited this for time as we roll towards the end of the ride. We're basically just chatting. We weren't that concerned with the effort at this point.
Well, we're wrapping up another epic ride. We're almost at the finish. Wind is just pounding us.
The wind's always out there. I let it do its thing and I do my thing. That's why you don't want to worry about speed too much. Focus on the effort. That's what matters. How hard you going. whether it's your power zone or your heart rate zone, whatever, RPE. Once you're going hard enough, don't worry, let the speed fall where it may. There's the fairgrounds. We're back.
Man, this wind has picked up. Wow.
Wind, it was blowing so hard. You see the sign on the right down here? It knocked it down a little bit.
Knocking it down.
And there's the finish. They got a little inflatable banner over there. Paul starts messing around, telling, let's go get it done. Finish it.
Let's go on, man. Get it over with. 76 miles.
Yeah, get to the finish line, coasting. Let's get through this stuff. Get it over with. Go get something to do with the rest of this day.
That's what I'm talking about. Put them on the belt.
So the guy was on the left was congratulating us.
Watch that gravel. Don't go near that gravel.
Yeah, there's a lot of gravel on the right side there.
Right.
That's it. I hope you all got a chance to get out. If you didn't get out there,
we just went out
keep
and
those
loosened up.
doctors fired. Get the K's in.
That's how it's supposed to feel. So we did 76 miles and it feels like we went out for like a 35, 40 mile ride. That's what happens when you're in shape. That's the way it's supposed to feel. That's what structured training does.
That's right.
Yeah. And knowing how to pace yourself. Those boys, yep.